KICI-LP 105.3 FM is Iowa City's nonprofit local radio station. We rely on listener support, and you can help us continue to air great programming like Democracy Now!, Great Taste, Green Room IC, The Situation Room, and This Way Out by making a one-time donation or setting up a recurring donation at our website, KICIRadio.org. Just click on the donate button and become part of the team. KICI-LP. Low power, high impact.
Should I go to him, Kuno? What do I owe him? What does he need?
On this Green Room IC episode, Beverly, Mead, and Holly Hart welcome creators and cast of The Machine Stops, a new opera by John Lake and Cecile Goding. Joining John and Cecile are Ed Kottick and Mary Denmead. This new work will debut at the Coralville Center for the Performing Arts on July 30th.
As I have said, I kind of have incorporated stuff like something Monty Python might do, as well as something Puccini might do.
And when I heard my lines, my poetic lines put to music, it was just magic.
Finally decided that I would help this opera to see the light of day in any way I could, so I appointed myself producer.
Should I go to him, Kuno? What do I owe him? What does he need? What is he to me? What does he mean to me?
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Green Room IC. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with John Lake, composer, and Cecile Goding, librettist, about their upcoming production of The Machine Stops, a new opera, as well as Ed Kottick, who is the producer, musical director, and conductor, and Mary Denmead, whose characters include friend, official, and homeless. Welcome. It's great to have you all here. Now, our audience members always like to know who's behind the mic. Could you each please tell our listeners just a little bit about yourselves, like your background in theater, where you come from, something like that? John, why don't we start with you?
Well, I got my start as a rock and roll guitar player, playing in bands as a teenager. I was always interested in other forms of music, whether it was jazz or avant-garde. Eventually that led to an interest in classical music and taking courses in classical music. So that's the abbreviated version of my background. It started out with curiosity about different art forms and finally ended up with one of the more interesting art forms that we have available to us.
Okay, very good. And Cecile?
I came to Iowa City from a very small place in South Carolina where I worked in the adult literacy movement. So of course, neighborhoods and community involvement was very strong, and that's what I've most enjoyed here. I came to graduate school here in the Writers' Workshop in the nonfiction program.
Right.
But I've also, aside from teaching, I've mainly worked in collaboration with other artists on projects ranging from writing workshops with the Sudanese community to working with the Iowa Summer Writing Festival for some 14 years.
And Ed, how about yourself?
Hi, Bev.
Hi,
well,
honey.
Well, no, I've been involved with community theater in Iowa City and Coralville for 15 years now.
You can't have been that long, honey. You're just only 27, right?
I became acquainted with the opera as The Machine Stops some years ago when they did a workshop of parts of the first act. And they decided they needed a conductor and asked me to help out. And I was very impressed with what I saw, and finally decided that I would help this opera to see the light of day in any way I could. So I appointed myself producer. And that's been an interesting journey.
Uh-huh.
And we are at the point now where parts have been prepared and distributed, and we're going to start rehearsals in about a month.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, now I have a lot of questions specifically about the form of music. I'm sure there must be those in our audience who are like me. When I think of opera, I normally think of works sung in the Italian and Japanese languages and fat ladies singing very, very high notes. Is The Machine Stops sung in English or another language?
It's sung in English.
Okay.
Very good English.
Well, all right, very good. What is it exactly that makes an opera different from what one would normally think of as a musical?
Well, in my mind, there's very little difference between a musical and an opera.
Okay.
Some people will say, well, people are speaking, it's not an opera. Well, that's not true. Well, they say, well, if it doesn't have arias, then it's not an opera, and that's not true. I mean, an opera is a dramatic form involving acting, singing, staging, lighting, costumes. It's a very colorful and all-encompassing form. And that certainly describes the musical as well. Musical is just a form of opera. It's a more popular form of opera.
Okay, very good. John and Cecile, what prompted you to write an opera or to create a theater piece as an opera?
Well, I guess I should start since I got the whole ball rolling here. When I was in the writer's workshop, there was a very interesting seminar taught by our dear Iowa Poet Laureate Marvin Bell and his friend David Gomper, who's director of new music at the UI. Mm-hmm. And so this was a workshop involving 11 composers and 11 poets, and also a lot of UI musicians who got together to collaborate on words and music. And when I heard my lines, my poetic lines put to music, it was just magic. And it was outside of anything that I was hearing when I was writing. And it's just something I wanted to continue. Also, William LaRue Jones, who was the conductor at the UI, suggested that a friend and I start working on an opera. And so then she had to leave town. And so I started looking for a composer and found John. And I'm very happy that I did.
Well, we are too, because otherwise we wouldn't get to interview you. Now, obviously, The Machine Stops is something that was already in existence as a story. Is that how you decided to make this particular opera from that story, or was there some other factor that came into it?
I guess what I was looking for is something that was socially relevant to our time period. And also, I love science fiction. I love teaching science fiction because it's all social commentary on the present. Mm-hmm. And even when I was introduced to this story in the 1970s, and of course it was written in Edwardian England during 1909, I began to see connections between how we use technology, even at a time, of course, when we didn't even have personal computers, and how the story imagined life in the future was really intriguing to me. Here's this man in 1909, famous British author who predicted that we would be able to see and talk with each other on handheld devices, when only a few in Edwardian times even had telephones, and that we might have hundreds of Facebook friends that we would never meet. And so that's why I created the chorus, which is for friends which he has never met and will never meet because everyone is completely socially isolated. Mm-hmm. They live alone. They only communicate through their phones and their other screens. So it was really intriguing to me the way that Forster could predict that technology might simultaneously connect us and make our lives more convenient, and at the same time how that gives the machinery the ability to, and the powers that be, the ability to control us, because our only reality comes through the technology, which is, of course, controlled by a few people.
Okay, John, how would you describe your style? Are there other contemporary opera composers that you found as models?
I would say John Adams' Nixon in China is a very well-known modern American opera. Of course, getting back to musicals, of course, the great musicals were an influence on me. I probably hark back a lot to Wagnerian themes. That's where I got started. So I'm kind of eclectic in my choice of opera inspiration. As I have said, I kind of have incorporated stuff like something Monty Python might do, as well as something Puccini might do. And you know, I often think of myself, what would Mozart do here? Well, I don't sound much like Mozart, but, you know, I'm inspired by just different musicians from different periods. And I think I was probably also, in a way, influenced by having a lot of playing with avant-garde jazz musicians who just did nothing but improvise. And I find that useful as a composer, to just be able to go off on a tangent without having to fit it into any particular mold. Now, I try to be organized and make everything work good and sound good, but that's kind of the way I approach it. I listen to contemporary composers, but actually I would like to listen to more of them. I'm really impressed with it's good for us that there's a large amount of interest in modern American opera. And I would say that there's not, I think the modern composer I would cite also as the early influence was like Andrew Lloyd Webber, who did Jesus Christ Superstar, and that kind of bridge between drama and rock and roll and the opera is appealing to me. Okay.
Did you find it a challenge to write a work that relies entirely on singing, or did you need to work with the performers to make sure their parts were in their vocal range? This is kind of for both John and Ed, and Cecile, of course, too.
I think John did a great job in fitting the voices to their voice range. In other words, it's I wouldn't say it's easy to sing. There are difficult parts, but I mean, that's okay. It's not anything that they can't handle.
Okay.
But it's very effective writing for the voice. The chief protagonist, whose name is Vashti, who's a woman living alone, everybody lives alone, is a mezzo-soprano, and that's going to be sung by Elisa Champ, who's the mezzo-soprano at the university, and does just a wonderful job.
Okay, very good. All right. How do you hope the operatic setting conveys what you want to get across in terms of emotion, meaning of the story, universal themes?
We're very glad to have on board Josh Cezanne as stage director. He's a real sweetheart to work with and very smart. He's been involved with area theater, both on stage and off, for many years. A lot of his productions are classics like Camelot, South Pacific, My Fair Lady, Music Man, but this is the first time he has agreed to direct a brand new opera by Iowa City artists. He's put together a design crew with an amazing vision for the staging of the machine stops, including costumes with what I call a steampunk look, influenced by the Edwardian era, and it's same with the sets. It just is going to be a very rich, interesting set that will engage everyone in the audience, whether they're opera fans or whether they're science fiction buffs.
Very good. Now, we have one of the actors here with us today. How many people are in your cast?
There are 7.
Seven. Okay, very good.
There's her son, who lives on the opposite side of the world. And then there are the 4 friends, who are soprano, alto, tenor, bass. And then there's another role, it's a dual role. a soprano role for airship attendant and homeless woman.
Okay, very good. Mary, could you please tell our listeners briefly about the characters you portray?
Oh, I am one of the friends. I am brand new to this cast, so this group of people know far more about this than I do. I have reviewed the score, but it looks like we play multiple people. We are friends of the main character, but also playing. And somebody else can help me out here because I don't know the story fully. We are playing sort of police, and if I'm understanding
like
that, authority.
You playing the homeless at a certain point, so you transition from the friends to the homeless.
Told me I was going to be homeless, but okay, I'll take
Yeah.
it. John.
Oh, the judges.
Yeah, the judges, like it's they're bureaucrats, which make all the, have all
Right.
these separate rules.
That's the word I'm looking for, bureaucrat. Great, excellent, thank you.
Can you describe the set for us and tell us who designed it?
The set is going to be designed by Rich LeMay, who has had a lot of experience at the Coralville Center for the Performing Arts.
Right.
And he has many ideas which fit into our sense of what it would be like to be living underground in one room, but to be able to communicate with hundreds of people.
Okay, all right.
You have all your needs met, but also your life completely controlled.
Okay. Now, you mentioned Josh Cezanne, who is you're saying stage manager. Do you have a choreographer or a costumer?
Mainly Josh is taking care of that. He is our stage director as well.
Stage director. Okay, very good.
Very good idea.
There is no dancing in this opera.
He's remarkable to work with. I've been fortunate enough to work with him in the past.
Good.
So now, Ed, you're the producer, musical director, and conductor.
Yeah,
Have you had any issues with wearing this many hats in one production?
not really. Not really. It's been a very positive experience. Working with John and Cecile has been just great. They are wonderful people. We all share a common vision of the opera. We've had a lot of discussions about it, and we've all gone down the same path.
Okay, very good.
Being the producer has not turned out to be a negative experience in any way.
That's good to know. How many are in the orchestra?
It's a 12-piece orchestra.
Very good, very good.
Strings, a violin, a cello, and a bass, and 3 woodwinds, a flute, an oboe, and a clarinet, 3 brass, a trumpet, a French horn, and a trombone.
Okay.
And then there's a piano, guitar, and percussion.
Very good, very good. What are the run dates, including curtain times for each performance?
There are 2 performances. One is on Saturday night, July 30th. It starts at 7:30. And then we decided to add a matinee on Sunday, which will start at 2:00.
And that's Sunday, the 31st of
Yes,
July. Okay.
That's coming up fast.
Yes, it is. Now, where's the show being produced?
It's at the Coralville Center for the Performing Arts. Almost everybody in the area is familiar with that. And I like it. It's accessible. It's affordable, and it gives us a very large, beautiful venue to work with.
Okay. John, how would you rate this show if you need to with regard to how appropriate it would be for younger viewers? And we're going to say 13 and under.
I'll of course rely on Cecile and Ed to give me feedback on my answer, but I would say it's entirely appropriate. There are people, well, to give a spoiler, there are people that die at the end.
Okay.
But other than that, there's some people that There's occasionally someone screaming because the machine is threatening them, but I think it's entirely appropriate for, I would say, five. I should not say an age range, but I would say it's appropriate for children.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Sure.
All right, very good. How would someone go about purchasing tickets for the show?
Well, there's a couple of ways. The easiest way is to go to our website, themachinestoppsopera.com, and they will be directed to the Coralville Center for the Performing Arts, and you can buy tickets there. People can also call the box office at CCPA directly or go online to their site also.
Okay. Many people need to coordinate their schedules with regard to babysitters, dinner before or after the show, arranging transportation to and from the theater, etc. To help them in this regard, about how long does this show run?
It runs under 2.5 hours.
Under 2.5, and is that including intermission? Okay, all right. So again, The Machine Stops, a new opera, is being performed live and in person, don't you love it, on Saturday, July 30th at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday, July 31st at 2 p.m. 2022 at the Coralville Center for the Performing Arts, 1301 5th Street in Coralville. Holly, did you have any questions that you wanted to, if you wanted to ask a question?
No, you already asked the ones that I had come up with and thought might be interested. So no, I can't think of anything else. I just want to mention, this reminds me of the Poulenc opera, La Voix Humaine, Human Voice. It's a woman in the telephone and having a bad breakup and the phone cuts out, kind of but I thought this immediately struck me like this. So, it's kind of a timeless theme throughout history.
Okay, very good. Well, it's time to close the curtain on this interview. Thank you again for being here today. It's really been a lot of fun and very informative, and I've really enjoyed our time together. I hope we can do another interview with you again soon. So be writing something else for me to interview you about.
Thank you very, very, very much. We really appreciate it.
Music clips used in this Green Room IC episode are from a workshop performance of The Machine Stops, an opera in 2 acts by composer John Lake and librettist Cecile Goding. The workshop performance had piano instead of the full orchestra. The hosts for this episode are Beverly Mead and Holly Hart, with production by Craig Jarvie. Visit KICI's SoundCloud page to hear this and other Green Room IC interviews. You can send comments and suggestions to greenroomIC@kiciradio.org. Thank you for listening to KICI Radio in Iowa City.